Welcome to paradise. Guatemala. Bucolic mountains, bountiful markets, beautiful people, Mayans mostly. Nearly 500 years ago, Spanish conquistadors almost wiped out their ancestors. 25 years ago, dictator José Ríos Montt tried to finish the job. His thugs murdered over 200,000 Guatemalans. Over half were Mayan. They targeted men mostly. But when the shooting started, the soldiers' guns didn't discriminate. They slaughtered men, women, and especially children in an attempt possibly to wipe out an entire generation. Now, their bodies lie silent. Freddy Peccerelli could have been one of them. One more little Guatemalan boy who went off to play and never came back. But his family escaped just in time. He grew up in New York. He became an anthropologist. And now he has come home.
When I was in college, I was looking for something that would connect me with Guatemala. So I went to the American Anthropological Association meeting. And what I saw was pictures of people like me. I was 24, 25 at the time, conducting these investigations, digging the bodies out of the ground, analyzing the remains.
Peccerelli traveled to Guatemala with the team from the Anthropological Association in 1995. He has been working in Guatemala ever since. His goal is to find evidence of Ríos Montt's atrocities. Without it, the murderers can never be brought to trial.
Right now, all we have are stories. My brother was killed. My father went to work one day and never came back. What we are doing is proving that a crime was committed. We provide the evidence that make these deaths legally official.
It seems the bodies are buried everywhere. And until Peccerelli uncovers every last one of them, neither the dead nor the living can rest in peace. He knew this when he first learned about a grave in the village of Nebaj.
The military, according to testimony, picked out 23 men. 5 of them tried to get away. And I remember finding 32 gunshot wounds in one guy. He was tied against a tree and they used him as target practice in front of 200 people in the community.
Then the murderers made their next victims dig a trench.
And then with their hands tied behind their backs, they made them line up and one by one they shot them at the edge of the grave and they fell in the grave.
Political upheaval is all too common in Guatemala. Guatemala City is the country's vibrant capital, the center of power and government. But from 1960 to 1996, the government was at war with its own citizens, a war that resulted in the deaths of 200,000 Guatemalans. A United Nations report blamed Guatemala's civil war on the government's long history of protecting the interests of the wealthy minority while disregarding impoverished native populations like the Mayan. As protesters for greater social equality grew more vocal, the government sent the army to silence them. Rebel guerrilla armies organized to fight back. Guatemala was immersed in a civil war. The bloodshed carried on for 36 years. during which time military coups were common, with 10 different political regimes rising to power. The early 1980s marked the most violent period when the state-sponsored campaign of terror targeted Mayans accused of being rebel collaborators. Ríos Mondt's men worked with inhuman efficiency. They exterminated tens of thousands with a bullet to the head. They were the lucky ones.
The children, for example, they killed by taking them from their arms and legs and swinging them against trees, rocks, walls, anything of the sort. Testimony says, for example, the women, they usually would strip down and rape before, and then they would kill them by pieces sometimes.
What happened to the Mayans was a modern-day genocide. The United Nations brokered a peace accord in 1996 between the government-backed military and the rebel forces. A UN verification group assured the Guatemalan people that the peace agreements were met and that human rights abuses would end. The shooting has stopped. Peccerelli's team at the Anthropology Foundation of Guatemala worked to bring these killers to justice. But it's dangerous work. Ríos Montt and his monsters are still out there, watching.
A couple of years ago, things got a bit difficult because we started receiving death threats. The letters were very specific. They spoke about not allowing us to continue the work. And none of these cases, they said in this letter, none of these cases will ever go to trial, so you're doing it for nothing. And we've allowed you to excavate all these skeletons in peace, but your families are gonna bury your bodies and the bodies of your children in tears. But those death threats definitely mean that our work has had an impact on somebody. We see that somebody is nervous because of the work we're doing.
And in Guatemala, there are no idle threats. But the work must continue. Peccerelli's teams identified over 400 grave sites. He needs help. José Efraín has lived in Guatemala all his life. For him, every set of bones may be someone he knew. Forensic expert Elizabeth Murray came from Cincinnati. Dr. Clyde Snow, one of the most famous forensic anthropologists on the planet, has agreed to help. Snow has done this gruesome work all over the world. Argentina, Bosnia, Iraq. His expertise is invaluable on a job this massive and this monstrous. Snow always starts by talking with the locals.
Here in Guatemala, very often we are led to the gravesite because typically what would happen would be that the army would come in, conduct the massacre, and then 24, maybe 48 hours later, when the survivors were able to creep back, you might say, sometimes at night, they would come in and they would make the burials.
Peccerelli and his team listen to each villager's story. They begin to earn the Mayans' trust. Now, almost every day, he hears one more story, and the villagers lead him to one more grave. At every dig, there is an audience, a gallery of Guatemalans hoping that today is the day their long-vanished loved one reappears. Memories haunt the survivors. Memories of the horrible way their children were murdered, of husbands killed without warning. And one question haunts them. why.
A lot of the people in the communities feel as if they deserved what happened because of something wrong they were doing. But they've come to realize that they didn't do anything wrong and that they don't have any reason to put their heads down.
José Suas Navar knows he's uncovering more than bones. He's uncovering pain.
It helps them to talk about what happened. Even though they lived through all this, there's been no opportunity until now for them to talk about it, to replay the death and the horror stories.
The survivors still suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder. So the United Nations has added one more player to Peccerelli's team. Christina Ehrlich is a UN representative assigned to work with caseworkers.
I think the processes here can be done very near to the people. It's a very human process. They accompany the people in a way that they start to lose their fear. They open up. They start to talk. They can feel that there are also other people that need to talk, to get free again, to cure their trauma, to cure their internal wound that is opening again because of the exhumation process.
Peccerelli's team must put a name on these victims. It is no easy task. In a town called Panimache, Ríos Montt's men slaughtered 35 men, women, and children. Freddy Peccerelli knows what to expect, but for what he is about to see, he can never truly be ready. 200,000 Guatemalans lie buried under Guatemala's lush greenery, massacred by dictator José Ríos Montt and his men. Anthropologist Freddy Peccerelli is on a mission to find the victims, return them to their families, and bring the guilty to justice.
The work is very, very complicated in Guatemala, and it's dangerous as well. So people have to be devoted, and they have to be willing to risk their own safety to do this kind of work, as well as they have to be willing to be subjected to the things they're gonna see.
He and his team head 3 hours north to the tiny village of Panimache. The children greet them first. These young Mayans have only heard about their lost generation. Today, they'll see it firsthand.
I guarantee you they will understand after we're done. They will, and they'll get to see everything. We usually allow the kids to come and watch and ask questions. It's not just a forensic investigation. It's a whole process that involves their lives today and what happened to their family members 20 years ago.
The villagers' story is terrifyingly familiar. In 1982, Ríos Montt's soldiers rounded up 35 men, women, and children. They shot most of them. 1 bullet to the back of the head. The rest, they hacked to death with machetes. When the murderers left, the surviving villagers quickly buried the victims in several unmarked graves. Now, Peccerelli will finally let the dead tell their stories. All the work at the site is handled with great precision and care. The dirt is removed slowly and carefully. The team does not want to miss any small bones or artifacts that might be crucial in identifying a body. Every step is photographed so that the team can document every item they find. The digging has barely begun when the team uncovers a scrap of clothing. They know they are in the right place.
It could be a belt, it could be a skirt.
The trim of a skirt.
Then, the first skeleton.
Another skull.
Yeah. But what we'll do now is we'll take out the fill, and then we'll go down around the edges. I'm gonna take a walk to the other side. You wanna see it? Because we're gonna be getting something there.
Snow remains behind to watch the work at this site, while Peccerelli and Murray move on to the next one. The second grave site reveals the skeletal remains of 4 people, an entire family. A father, mother, child, and an infant, all slaughtered. They were buried with the mother holding the baby.
So clearly there's cases where when the family buries them, they have clear understanding of the relationships and they...
Yeah, and it's evident in the way they bury them.
For Peccerelli, every bone, every artifact is important. He never knows what he might find that will help him ID the victims and possibly the killers. There are no shortcuts when the stakes are this high. The field team of 20 will number each item found in the grave. They categorize each and every bone. Workers draw sketches and take photographs to record the exact location of every artifact and bone. These murders were committed more than 20 years ago. But today, this is an active crime scene.
We will write everything we can in the field. We won't analyze the trauma, but if we see a clear gunshot wound, we'll write it down.
Peccerelli saves the in-depth analysis for the lab. There, his team will closely examine everything. Bones, teeth, the tiniest bit of flesh.
Claro. They were covered, this grave, they were covered with these ponchos, these quilts.
Family covered the wound.
Mayans have no medical records or dental charts, but they have these. Hand-woven fabrics that are as individual as fingerprints. Guatemalan DNA.
Yeah, at least this way we got the whole pelvis goes into.
Their clothes and blankets are as distinctive as their faces. So IDing the dead hangs literally by a thread.
The Mayan women, because they do so much weaving, they're extremely, I call it textile-minded. They know their textiles. They have great memories for the colors and patterns, so that when we're opening the grave, very often the wife or the mother may be there, and she'll remember, for example, what the person was wearing, sometimes in a great deal of detail, from 20 or 25 years before. She'll know right away that, that's her son or her husband or brother.
The clothes can also show how a murder was committed, and maybe who committed it.
In the field, we'll look at the clothing very rapidly just to make sure, especially in a child, that there are no epiphyses left. The ends of the bones that might not be fused yet. And also, in case there's holes caused by a knife, a gun, but most of that would be done in the laboratory. Eventually, the clothing will be looked at a lot closer to see if the trauma in the body matches up with the holes in the clothing.
Each grave is full of everyday items. A wallet, a ring, even a set of dishes. Were they put there to comfort the dead or to tell the living who these people were in life? Dozens of Mayans gather at the site every day, just in case a friend or a family member is found.
The main difference from the work we do here to anywhere else is the presence of the community members in the entire process. People from the community are allowed to come into the grave as long as one of us is here.
The items found near the remains of the dead often provide solid clues that aid in the identification process. One such item played a critical role in a father finding the body of his son. At one of his gravesite excavations, Peccerelli's assistant told him a Mayan man was coming every day, asking if anyone had found a belt buckle.
He asked me, should I go get him? And I said, sure, go get him. And he ran off. And the old man came running, and he came right up to me. And he didn't say a word. I asked him, they tell me that you've been coming by every day and you're looking for a belt buckle. And I had the belt buckle, and I said, is this the belt buckle? And he didn't say anything. It must have been 30 seconds, but it felt like hours to me. And then eventually he just took a step back and opened his coat. And when I saw it was the same belt buckle. That was his son. It made me realize that there was something I could do to make a difference. Through my work, through something I like doing for other reasons. The way that anthropology is seen as an academic study of man. But when you start working in Guatemala, you realize it's a lot more than that. It's actually bringing lives back together. And, this old man hadn't seen his son in 20 years, and that belt buckle was his son.
See this one?
Ríos Montt slaughtered his potential enemies before they could fight back. The massacre of Panimache shows just how ruthless he was.
So that's a full set of baby teeth.
Yeah, first one was coming up. It hasn't been, maybe about 5 years old.
5 years old?
About 5 years old.
In the early 1980s, 1 in every 8 victims of a killing or disappearance was a child. The army may have believed children were the next generation of guerrilla fighters and had to be killed. The devastation of entire communities had drastic human consequences still felt today. The deaths of fathers and husbands left many of these impoverished families even poorer. Survivors continue to mourn the loss of family members, many of whom simply disappeared. The dig has been difficult and draining, but successful. Ríos Montt's soldiers killed 35 people at Panimache. Peccerelli's team found all but 1. Workers on the site boxed the bones for later examination in Guatemala City. The team moves on to their next stop, a place, though even tinier than Panimache, saw even more bloodshed. The mountains of Guatemala. From a distance, they teem with life. But just below the surface, they are choked by death. 200,000 Guatemalans lie buried in a country no bigger than Tennessee. Freddy Peccerelli and his team arrive at Chahulim. As soon as they arrive, villagers tell them about that day in January.
Can you tell us
On January 23, 1981, José Ríos Mondt's thugs stormed in. By nightfall, 40 people were dead. Don Diego was a young man the day the soldiers came. He's been waiting 24 years for this morning. Diego says he went to the market with his brother and a few friends. They bought a loaf of bread and headed home. But the army was waiting. An ambush. Diego did the only thing he could. He ran. He knew if the soldiers caught him, they'd kill him. So he hid in the jungle. When he finally returned, he found his brother and his friends dead, like so many others in Chahulim. The bodies had to be buried quickly in unmarked graves. Now Diego isn't sure where his brother is. He prays Murray and Sawaznavar can find him so that he and his brother can have peace. The team talks to the villagers to try and pinpoint the exact location of the grave. They spend days digging in various sites, and finally, in one of the locations, they find a skeleton. A man. The bones tell Sawaznavar and Murray how he died. He was surrounded by soldiers and could use only his hands to protect himself.
You can see this. Looks like a gunshot here.
Yeah, a defense wound where he held his hand up and then the bullet went through his hand at that point.
Yes, I think so. Yes.
Another soldier shot him in the leg, shattering the left thigh bone. A bullet to the head finished the job.
So there's radiating fractures in the skull, but since we can't see
the left side here.
So someone may have been shooting from the left and he was trying to defend himself?
Yes, I think so. Yes.
Murray and Sawaznavar can tell a lot from a set of bones, but not the one thing they most want to know. Who is this?
In Guatemala, especially among the Mayans, the challenges for identification are great. There are no medical records. There are no dental records.
So there's only one way to tell who this might have been. Find something he was wearing or carrying. His clothes say this man died in winter.
He has many clothes here. Several layers, and in January here is very cold. Besame las tijeras otra vez. Okay.
Diego's brother was 42 when he was murdered, and the bones are from a man who was about 40 when he died. A man who knew what it meant to work hard.
And look, you see arthritis on his spine. Wasn't a young man, you can see the, see what I mean? The lipping, the arthritis here, and here.
Yes, but look at this. Deformities, more typical here. They work with many.
Right, they put the loads on their back so it would not be uncommon to see arthritis in the spine.
Yes.
More digging. At last, a clue. It's a wallet. Only one thing can be made out. A calendar.
So here you can see 1979.
Yes. It's a picture for Christmas time.
The soldiers came in January, so this could be Diego's brother. To be sure, the bones will be examined in Guatemala City. But even then, there are no guarantees.
Yeah. How do you spell that?
Soon, another body is found. Another man. But this one is younger. Perhaps his clothes may provide a clue to his identity. Anthropologist Raquel Lorenzana asks the crowd if anyone can identify the clothing.
A esta persona. ¿A los familiares? ¿Dónde están los familiares?
One old woman has brought every piece of clothing she owns. She has been waiting for this day for years.
16.
Nothing she carries matches anything found in the grave. Then, another wallet. This one is in good shape. In it is a single photograph. It is passed from hand to hand. Several minutes go by as the wallet is passed through the crowd. The villagers stare intently, hoping to recognize the person in the photo. Then, a trembling voice breaks the silence. A woman doesn't just recognize the picture, she knows the person in it. It is her brother, Pedro. He was only 16 the day the soldiers came to Chahulim. She remembers watching as they buried him on this spot. It's unusual to have the victim's family so close to a site, and it takes a toll on the anthropologists.
Exactly, especially when she's crying. It's difficult to see her.
But you're helping her, so I guess that's...
40 people died in this tiny village. Only 5 skeletons were found. Pedro Morales and maybe Don Diego's brother. But 35 people just like them will probably never be found. The find is always emotional for Peccerelli and for the people looking on.
When you speak to the families of the people who were killed, they speak of their bodies being left out in the open or hidden as animals would be. They also speak of not being able to properly hold a burial or having any place to take flowers. So when we identify someone, it allows them this dignity, this human dignity.
Identifying skeletons that have been in unmarked graves for more than 20 years is as much art as science. At the lab in Guatemala City, Freddy Peccerelli and his team will use both to bring the murderers to justice. 200,000 Mayans lie in makeshift graves all over Guatemala. So far, Freddy Peccerelli and his team have found 3,000 of them. All the remains are now being studied in this Guatemala City lab. Scientists study each individual bone in the hopes that they can uncover some small clue to point them to the murderers. The bones have to be cleaned, sorted, and categorized before they can be identified. And often, they need repair. Skulls are particularly fragile, especially after a quarter century in the ground. Many have to be glued together. The work is slow, but the team is committed to seeking justice for these murdered victims. Nothing will stop them, not even death threats. Peccerelli gets letters telling him that unless he stops what he's doing, he'll die doing it. The phone rings in the middle of the night. Lab workers say cars follow them home. And some of the warnings aren't as subtle.
My garage door was shot at, and then they went after my family, sister, brother, etc. So, and that became more frustrating because we didn't know really where it was coming from or how much danger we were really in.
These scientists risk their lives to identify these victims for two reasons. So Mayans can finally bury their dead, and so no one in Guatemala will ever have to live in fear again. But figuring out who these people are isn't easy. The 21st century tools that most anthropologists take for granted don't work in Guatemala.
There are no dental records. There are no medical records in any of the communities.
So Peccerelli and his team resort to inexact science. They interview a victim's friends and family and build what they call a before-death profile.
These interviews try to recreate the osteological profile of a person, how tall he was, or she was, the age. And then we compare those interviews with the analysis in the laboratory.
Then scientists match interview with evidence. If someone broke an arm as a child, they'll look for a skeleton with a healed fracture. Something as tiny as a chipped tooth can make an identification. And that identification of the dead allows the living to get on with their lives.
It is important to have them identified for legal reasons, not only for criminal prosecution, but also for inheritance purposes or for remarrial, for example. If somebody wants to get remarried, they can't because the person that they're married to is still alive in the legal records.
The bones can also tell Peccerelli's team how someone died. Anthropologists Alejandro Santis and Elizabeth Murray examine a skull. Like so many others, this woman was shot in the back of the head.
Yeah, the people told us that the army went to the villages, and so the people got scared. So they ran out, and the army started to shoot them.
And you can see the fractures going out from where the bullet entered in the back of the skull. And then the injuries were so serious that it just blew the bones of the face, the small bones of the face, were destroyed.
All exploded.
Destroyed that.
So we made sketches. This is, like all the fractures. Fractures we have to find. And also the neck. You could see it's also broken.
Yeah, even high up in her neck, the force of the impact to the back of the head was so serious it even broke bones in her neck.
Something as simple as a sweater can tell a horrifying tale to a trained eye.
Can you see here? We have some cut marks on the front too.
Scientist Claudia Rivera relives a man's nightmarish final minutes by comparing knife wounds on his ribs and vertebrae with cut marks in his sweater. He was stabbed 38 times.
Because it's from a double-bladed knife. The numbers are the number of times that the guy was stabbed on the back. And these cut marks match with the cut marks that we have on the bones. And I think that he was tied up because the position of some of them, the guy was, he couldn't move. He was tied up.
Identifying victims is tough. Building a case against the guilty can be almost impossible. So far, only a handful of these brutal cases have actually gone to trial.
The reason why that is can be explained in fear, maybe lack of interest a bit, and I'm sure in some cases not enough evidence.
But the team is making progress. In January 2004, the man believed to be behind the murders, José Ríos Montt, lost his legal battle to avoid prosecution. the Guatemalan courts have stripped away his immunity. He can now be charged with overseeing the extermination of 200,000 Guatemalans. Justice may yet be served. Mayans believe the line between the living and the dead is a thin one. They also believe that a proper burial is an essential part of life. A Mayan wake is filled with ritual. There are songs, prayers, speeches, laughter, and tears. Before it ends, everyone in the village will take part. José Suas Navar knows these people have waited more than 20 years for this day. Many are too young to remember this lost generation, but they understand its importance. Here, the army troops came in and killed 20 villagers. Most were women and children and the elderly. The soldiers left the bodies out in the open as a warning to anyone thinking about collaborating with their enemies.
The survivors tried to bury them on the next day after the killing. But the army found out and came back into the village and made them take the bodies out of the grave they dug. But only 2 days later, after the army left, they hurried and buried them again in a secret place.
Suas Navar and other crew members unload the boxes containing the remains, delivering them to the members of the village. After the bones are unloaded and the men and women gather around their departed, Suas Navar begins.
You are brave people. You have courage to come forward and tell your stories, and to tell the stories of the people we remember here today. You're right to want their deaths investigated. That's the only way all this killing can stop once and for all. That's the only way your children will no longer have to live in fear like you did, like I did. We want them to live in peace.
The peace of an entire people begins here, with these 10 who will finally be laid to rest.
We were thrilled to finally be able to bring the bodies of these 10 people back to the village. We only wish we could have identified every body we found. Maybe one day we will find every Mayan who was killed and be able to tell who they were. But right now, it's just not possible. But we're always going to keep trying.
During this Mayan ritual, the survivors speak about their loved ones. This is the first time many of these reserved people have talked about what happened. At last, they are free, unloading a burden they've been carrying far too long.
Creo que esto es un día muy especial, pues, de que todas las familias podamos compartir este momento, este día, que es el último y único día, pues, que podemos compartir con nuestros familiares, nuestros difuntos. Entonces, yo creo que esto es muy importante.
This sacred ritual has a very worldly aspect. The prosecutor's office is here to record every death and issue death certificates. This will be vital in a trial. It will also let widows remarry and let children claim property that has been in limbo. Finally, each set of remains is placed in a casket. After more than 20 years, the bones of the dead can be laid to rest. As the children play outside, the villagers prepare to say goodbye. The floor is covered with fresh pine straw. The caskets are adorned with flowers. Then the burial begins. After one entire day and night of singing and praying, the bodies are finally buried. At last, these victims of one man's hunger for power can rest. And so can the living.
It's not a matter of getting the skeletons out of the ground. It's a matter of putting together the whole story of how those skeletons got in the ground in the first place, a history of the incident.
In the months and years ahead, the team hopes to bury tens of thousands more, including the boy with the belt buckle, Don Diego's brother, Pedro Morales, and all the others who died too soon and waited too long for this day. For Freddy Peccerelli, this is more than a job. It's a calling. But there are too many bodies stretched out over too much territory.
We try to plan the next 5 years, and we realized that we need another 30 or 40 years of work at this level. I mean, we're conducting 70 to 80 investigations a year now. Massive. We're talking about recovering anywhere from 400 to 500 bodies every year, sometimes more. And at that level, we're still talking about 30 or 40 years of work.
The work is daunting. But for Peccerelli, quitting is not an option.
We believe that you really can't build the future unless you know your past. By providing scientific proof of the atrocities that happened in Guatemala during the conflict, it has allowed us to show people what we see. It has allowed us to show people what the bones tell us.
Since 1992, Peccerelli has prepared nearly 400 cases, but only 3 have gone to trial. The work is maddeningly slow, but Peccerelli continues building his mountain of evidence. He hopes that soon it will speak for the thousands of silenced Guatemalans and bring their killers to justice.